Hey, what's up guys, Darkbreaker here. In today's video, as you guys can see, patch 5.0C is out. I've been playing it a lot actually, and I can give you guys my personal input about what champions I think are the best for each position. Gonna give you my in-depth explanation if you guys wanna hear and learn why certain champions are strong right now or why certain champions are weak right now. Kindred is coming out in I think 2 weeks. And then we also have the Wukong Rework coming out next week. I've played Kindred on the test server, so I think I have a decent idea about how strong she's gonna be or how her kit works. And then on top of that, Wukong obviously, the rework is very nice, giving him a lot of armor thanks to the new passive, and a lot of healing on top of that. And then some quality of life changes for his kit as well, so we are gonna rank this guy as well. And then we have a very big change that's gonna affect the majority of bruisers that they now can stack up. Whereas the Trinity Force passive got changed. Trinity Force passive and Black Cleaver's passive, they had the same movement speed enhancement passive, but now they split it up. The Trinity Force has a different passive, and you can stack up both passives that you can get a lot of movement speed. And which champions benefit the most from these changes? Hecarim, for example, getting tons of movement speed. Like on top of that, with Spear of Shogun giving you more movement speed as well, base movement speed. So very lovely changes for bruisers like Hecarim, maybe Aatrox, Vi, Xingqiu, etc. So we're gonna run through that. I hope you guys will enjoy this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And tell me down below in the comments, what's your opinion about the patch notes? What are you hyped about? What champions are, in your opinion, the strongest for each position? Maybe you have a champion that you really hate and where you're like, I don't like that champion. Just write down below in the comments, and let's get started with the Baron Lane tier list. I would try to keep it a little bit shorter than usual because I feel like the videos might be a little bit too long, but you guys can write down below in the comments whether or not you guys prefer the very long, in-depth explanation videos for the tier list, or you guys prefer me to run it more quickly through, summarize it, and compress the video a bit more. Let's get started. First change I did for this tier list, 5.0C, is I removed the god pick, because honestly I feel like when I was thinking about making this tier list, I was honestly thinking there are so many champions where it's very close, and I honestly can't decide what's the best champion for each position, because categorizing, saying something is the best, is very hard because each champion has their strengths and weaknesses, and some champions are very close, where it's just preference or playstyle, etc. And you can't really say, wow, this is... I mean, there used to be like Yuumi used to be like the absolute god tier in terms of support, but Yuumi, for example, got a very massive nerf, so it's kind of hard to say what's the best champion. Anyways, let's get started with the Baron lane, then jungle, mid lane, ADC, and support. There will be timestamps for you guys, so you guys can just click through if you guys don't feel like listening to me. But obviously you guys can just check out my tier list for on orientation, so you guys know what's the best or what's the worst. Remember, I always say it's my personal opinion, it's subjective. I try to be objective, but obviously you can't be 100% objective, and there's obviously sometimes you're just subjective. Anyways, let's get started. Aatrox, very strong bruiser. He benefits from the changes as well. Shogun, Black Cleaver, Trinity are just very good on him. He's just one of the best bruisers with a lot of damage, sustain, and tankiness. Akali is very good in the 1vs1, and she's an amazing assassin in teamfights. Garen is a champion that is just super solid, very hard to kill, and his damage output is also good. So he's the right balance between very tanky, doing a lot of damage, and still very beginner friendly to play. Then we have Jax. Jax is one of the strongest late game scaling split pushers in the game, one of the strongest 1vs1 champions. And in solo queue, where there's a Clown Fiesta, and if you have good macro, his split pushing can be very annoying for the opponents to deal with, especially if you're ahead. Then we have Camille. Camille is, as a duelist, one of the strongest 1v1 champions. Then she has high mobility, very good catch potential thanks to her ultimate, scaling like a truck into the late game, and an amazing split pusher as well, and can be good in teamfights. Renekton is a solid package. That means he is strong / decent at everything that you want a Baron laner to be, like strong in the early game, being a good frontliner, having some nice initiation tools, being tanky thanks to his ultimate as well, but he kind of falls off in the late game. Now let's move on to Gwen. Gwen is an AP, I would say bruiser, AP bruiser in my opinion, playstyle wise. She's a hard counter towards tanks, and she's a late game scaling monster since she does true damage as well and has a lot of sustain. Gragas AP, absolute fantastic pick. He just works like a charm, clearing the wave, joining team fights, a lot of playmaking potential, and even as a tank he has great engaging tools, disengaging tools, and just provides a lot of crowd control. Set right now is definitely a hot pick as well. They did nerf Set recently, but he's still very good thanks to Hard Steel, Titanic Hydra, and just going for very tanky build, and obviously he's a super tank with a lot of playmaking potential in teamfights. Urgot is actually one of those champions that have an insane win rate on the Chinese server, I guess because in the laning phase he's a hard counter towards a lot of champions. He counters tanks, for example, thanks to his percentage damage, and he has really good playmaking potential. So I think that's one of the reasons why he's working so good right now, because he's punishing a lot of melee champions in the early game, and then he can extend the lead, snowballing, being tanky, having good playmaking. Darius is very similar to Set, but I think Set has way better teamfight potential and better playmaking potential, while Darius does have some nice carry potential, but at the same time, the amount of times you will get kited in teamfights is pretty damn much. Let's move on to Sion. Sion is a champion that provides both being a good frontliner on teamfights, and at the same time, he obviously can split push as well, just being super annoying with the inting Sion strategy. But I mean, the best way to make Sion work is by having very bad KDA, so the system favors you and you have good bot lane players. But Sion is still overall a very good teamfight orientated champion as well. Malphite, hard counter towards champions that do physical damage and don't have true damage, and he has an amazing ultimate for teamfights. Shen also amazing in teamfights thanks to the global ultimate to join teamfights and the taunt for peeling or initiation, and at the same time his laning is also fine, and the split push pressure that he provides is pretty good. Jace just very strong in the laning phase thanks to this range advantage. He also got buffed for the lane, so mid lane Jace and top lane Jace are much better. He has very good poking damage in teamfights, but he does kind of fall off into the late game. Now for Dr. Mundo. Dr. Mundo right now is pretty strong thanks to Hard Steel. He just becomes a very tanky monster that just runs everyone down and is very hard to kill. And the only way to kill Mundo is pretty much by playing champions that are insanely strong in the late game and have true damage. For example, Gwen can be good, Camille can be good. I guess maybe Jack can be very annoying for Mundo because he can just try to ignore Mundo and just go for the turret all the time and provide so much split push pressure that Mundo can't really rotate towards the teamfights. And I don't think Mundo has enough damage to kill Jax in the late game as well. Now for Riven. Riven is a very high skill ceiling champion. She's kind of a brawler with high mobility and really good burst damage, but I would say she has a lot of harder matchups and is harder to master and play in teamfights in comparison to some other champions. Vladimir is a late game monster still. You just want to focus on farming, play it safe, and then in the late game you can become one of the deadliest AP champions, just running everyone down, having way too much sustain. Now for Yasuo and Yone, both are just late game monsters. Two of the best champions in the late game, scaling super hard, and tank Yasuo just becoming very tanky, and both of them can also lane pretty safe against most champions in the Baron lane as well. Fiora is a split push monster, very strong in the laning phase, insane duelist, but the problem are her teamfight capabilities, where she just gets kited or can't do too much in teamfights in comparison to other champions that are just way more useful in teamfights, like a Malphite, for example. Aurelia, also good in the Baron lane. You need to master her matchups, I would say. High skill ceiling, has a lot of carry and playmaking potential, but at the same time, she does have a lot of harder matchups. On is still very good, a tanky monster with tons of crowd control. Wukong Rework, making his laning phase way better, and obviously his ultimate is absolutely insane in teamfights. Akshan, as always in the early game, he is super good. Scales like a truck, but the problem about those ranged champions are that they can be easy countered by the enemy jungler by being too squishy. Same applies for Teemo, who is also super strong in the early game. Thoughts of kinda in the mid game, because the enemy laner will usually outscale you and kill you in the 1v1, but then in the late game when you have enough AP and your shroom cooldown is low, you can shroom, I think, cover the whole map with your shrooms and provide a lot of utility and damage. Like late game Teemo will always have tons of damage, but majority of the times when I have Teemo, they're inters, so what can I say? Teemo can be good, but most Teemo players are inters. That's the unfortunate truth. Same for like Blitzcrank and Veigar. These are like champions that can be very good, but at the same time, the players that main them are dog shit. Sorry for saying that, but that's the harsh reality of Teemo mains and Veigar mains and Blitzcrank mains. Now with Diana, teamfight potential very good, laning can be hard against some champions. Cannon got nerfed, very good in teamfights, good in the early game, thought of in the mid and late game in the 1v1 at least. Swain, very scaling, can be good in the late game though. Pantheon on the other hand, very strong in the early game, but thoughts of in the late game, very snowball reliant champion. I've moved both Trinity and Grace up. Both of them got buffed. In this patch it was Grace, in the last patch it was Trinity. Trinity right now a very hot pick actually in China, where he's dominating jungle. Trinity jungle actually has one of the highest win rates right now in Diamond Plus. So he does a lot of damage, his scaling is very good, but obviously his early game is not the greatest, so you wanna focus on playing it safe, scale, and then run people down 1v1. The biggest problem about Trinity is definitely his kite ability and then crowd control in teamfights. Grace is also decent in the early game, but he needs to focus on farming. You need like 3 items. That's when you're starting to scale and be really strong in those teamfights. But before that, he's kind of a pick that you want to use to counter some elite champions, since he has the range advantage. Jarvan, overall a very solid pick, good in teamfights, but nothing too special. Singed, I like Singed. He's an amazing champion. Fantastic in teamfights. His playmaking potential and his pick potential in teamfights, catching people off guard, is through the roof. But the problem is his early game is horrendous. His early game is definitely not enjoyable. So you usually want to cheese level 2, but if you're just playing safe, you're not gonna get cheesed by Singed. Like only if you're not aware about the cheese potential of Singed, you might die against him in the early game. But besides that, he's very weak and easy to punish in the early game. The same explanation applies to Nasus, that is super weak in the early game and easy to punish in the 1v1, and he needs a lot of time to scale. Vayne, on the other hand, is a champion that is a lane bully. You wanna pick her to counter and bully melee champions. For example, you're playing Vayne against Garen, or Vayne against Fiora, or Vayne against Darius. those matchups. Vayne is fantastic 1v1. Vayne beats most melee champions in the 1v1 actually. She's really, really good at that since she can kite them, she has true damage. Problem about Vayne is she is scaling. A, she's very scaling, and B, she's squishy and very vulnerable to enemy jungle ganks. And then we have Kayle. Kayle combines all the weaknesses I just mentioned from the B tier list in one. She is not good in the early game. First of all, she's not good in the early game. Secondly, she's insanely scaling. She's way more scaling in comparison to Nasus, who's more tanky, he's beefy. It's not easy to dive on Nasus, but it's so easy to punish, dive, and bully. I would say bully is the right word. Bully Kayle that she can play the game. And also in the 1v1 she is hella weak, so what can I say? She gets online, or she starts getting online at 3 or 4 items. I would say at 4 items and close to level 15. Like, the point where she's actually strong is when she's level 15, but hey, try to get level 15. I mean, the thing is, a lot of games are Clown Fiesta and Diamond Plus, so she will get into the late game, and therefore her win rate is not bad because she's up to the monster in late game. But I think the average game when you're playing here in higher ranks, you will get punished in the Baron lane. You will get absolutely punished in the Baron lane. And she's so vulnerable. Like, let's say I'm playing Camille against Kayle. Camille just wins this matchup spamming W. And then if, like, I don't know, Kha'Zix, Lee Sin, or Evelyn are coming for gank, I use my ultimate. Kayle is dead every single time and she's gonna be 0-5. She can play the game. She needs 50 minutes to become useful. That's the biggest problem about Kayle. And if you're botlane, like, K players have so bad KDA that they will always get good bot lane that she might get into the late game. But if I play Kayle, my bot lane is gonna be bad, I will get punished. What's gonna happen? Just a free lose. So the reason, like one of the reasonings that Kayle is also working is because the average Kayle has dogshit KDA because they're getting shit on. Sorry. Therefore, they're getting better bot lane players, and because they have better bot lane players, they have more time to scale. But this does not work if you have good KDA. Then you will get bad teammates in the bot lane, and you get punched at the same time topside. So enjoy your life. That's why Kayle will always remain C tier in my opinion. Because I've tried a lot of times, and every single time I'm getting camped by 3 people, and my bot lane still loses the game. What can I say? Let's move on to jungle. I think the highlight of the patch, or the biggest benefiter of the changes of Black Cleaver and Trinity is Hecarim. Hecarim benefits from the Shojin buff, from the new Trinity passive, and now he runs everyone down, having way too much movement speed. Like, I faced a Hecarim the other day, and he had Ghost, Trinity, Phage, and Glory activated. He didn't even have Black Cleaver yet. He got Phage and then got a tanky item instead of like rushing Black Cleaver, because then he still benefits from the passive and he becomes tanky. And he ran me down and I couldn't do anything. He was Speedy Gonzalez just running me down completely, and I was like, damn. And then I copied his build, I played Hecarim twice, and I just ran everyone down as well. This champion is so good right now. So Hecarim S+ tier. Do I put him best jungler in this patch? Nope. Aatrox also very strong still, also benefits from the changes. Trinity Black Cleaver, you guys already know. If you guys face Aatrox, who does way too much damage, he does 1 Q, he heals himself up from low life to 100%, he doesn't die, he has too much sustain and damage. Lee Sin, even though he got nerfed, he's still broken in my opinion. Kha'Zix, honestly, I feel like, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I've been struggling winning on Kha'Zix, even if I'm doing well. So I still think he's S+ tier, but he's not like the shining #1 jungler anymore. Definitely not in this meta. Still S+ tier, Insane Assassin, he can carry super good, especially if the team comp or the team comp he's facing are squishy, but he's definitely not the shining star in the jungle anymore. Blue Kayn and Red Kayn are just super good right now. Insane Assassin, Red Kayn against tanks, and Blue Kayn against squishy champions. Evelynn is one of the best AP assassins, thanks to her stealth, thanks to her snowball ability and her one-shot potential. Then we have Talon. Talon's jungle clear got nerfed, but at the same time, the wall jumping got way better right now. So, in my opinion, he's a strong S tier. I feel like his 1 vs 9 potential can be tricky. Like, I think if he's snowballing, he can dominate the game, but at the same time, I still feel like his 1 vs 9 potential is not as good as the others. He's a strong S tier though. Strong S tier, but I don't think he's quite S plus in my opinion. Now Kindred, the new champion Kindred, I tried her on the test server. In my opinion, her jungle clear, her damage output are good. But I think she's a champion that is not a typical 1 vs 9 champion. She's team reliant. Her kit, like her ultimate, is a tool that's benefiting your whole team. That's all. Like her ultimate potential is great, but I still think she's a champion that benefits from having decent allies, having frontline. She's not like a. She's a he or she, I don't know honestly. Kindred, let's just call Kindred. Kindred, strong S tier. Probably gonna be strong S tier. I was playing her on high mess, so I can't really tell. Too good, but that's my personal opinion right now. Obviously, it might change by the time I'm playing Kindred. I think it's gonna be strong S tier, but not quite S plus tier, because for S plus tier, if you guys have 4 idiots, can Kindred carry 4 idiots? Like you're facing hard assassins or something, you don't have a front line. Can you play the game in 1 vs 9 if you don't have a front line as Kindred? Since Kindred is like a range ADC jungle? I don't think so. Kindred is teammates reliant. Next, Gragas. Gragas, strong AP assassin. Poking assassin. Strong poking assassin. He feels like an assassin because his burst damage is crazy. Renekton jungle, also pretty good right now. Good damage, jungle clear, ganks, very solid. Diana, high mobility assassin. Volibear is super tanky. And his initiation tool or his dice are good. Nunu is a spam ganking monster with a lot of crowd control and being tanky. Amumu, obviously his ultimate is very good in team fights. Aramis, his ganking ability is insane. Hard counter towards physical damage. But obviously tanks at the same time. Tanks need good damage dealers. Without good damage dealers, you will never win as a tank. You can land, like your Malphite, you land a 5-man ultimate. But if your ADC is 0-10, you're not gonna win the game. Like that's why those S plus tier champions, if your bot lane is bad, these champions can actually carry 1 vs 9. Even if you have 0-10 bot lane, these champions have the potential to carry 1 vs 9. But typical tanks, they are good. They are potentially better in competitive, where you have good allies, but not in solo queue. In solo queue, you are on your own and you have 4 idiots majority of the times. That's your mindset. That has to be your mindset. Nautilus, good tank, they buffed him, but at the same time, you guys already know, tanks can't 1 vs 9. Tanks can be fantastic, and tanks are super important for team compositions, being initiators, having soaking damage, having high crowd control. But it's not enough. That's the truth is, it's just not enough. If you watched my streams, I have to carry games where my bot lane, my ADC is 0-10. My ADC is 0-10, my support is 0-8. I have to carry those games, and I will not be able to carry those games having 3-1-20 score stat line as Nautilus or as Ramos. I need to be 20 kills on a Hecarim or like on Kayn, one-shotting everyone, 1 vs 9. That's the biggest thing you have to understand in solo queue. And let's move on to Olaf. Olaf is a very situational pick in my opinion. He's an excellent hard counter against champions like Lux, Vega that need the crowd control as the peeling tool, but Olaf can just ignore it and run them down. And also he has 2 damage against melee champions or tanks, so he's very good against tanks as well. Darius also fantastic against melee champions and tanks, being able to stack up his passive very easily, having 2 damage and very good carry potential, but he sucks against champions that have a lot of mobility and that can kite him. For example, Vayne, Lucian, Ezreal. What's also very annoying, Morgana is a pain in the ass. Tanky champions that have a lot of core control, like a Nautilus, maybe a Ramos, can be super annoying for Darius as well in teamfights. Jarvan, fantastic assassin or fantastic tank, depending on how you play him. Very good in the early game, just fantastic jungle in my opinion. A strong S tier. Fizz, also strong S tier, late game monster. Surprisingly, I didn't even realize I have a 60% win rate on this champion. I actually win a lot on this champion. I think because his late game, his one-shot potential is one of the best. Fiddlesticks, amazing team fight. You press one ultimate, you can carry the game. Riven, very strong in the early game, good snowball potential. Xin Shao and Vi, just super solid bruisers, good ganking potential, tanky, doing good damage. Yone has excellent 1 vs 9 potential, but he is very scaling and his jungle clear is pretty slow pace. They did nerf Morgana jungle, but I think with item craft she has pretty good potential, honestly. I didn't try it yet, but I think with the item craft rune that got buffed, costing only 50 gold, she can focus on power farming, providing a lot of utility and having a lot of poking damage. Pantheon, strong early game. Monster, Shyvana, very strong late game champion that has to focus on farming and focusing on counter jungling or counter ganking, but yeah, very scaling. Mundo, strong champion overall, pretty good in this meta right now since he's so tanky. Graves got buffed and he is very good. I'm surprised. They buffed this early game. He focused on farming, he gets 3 items, that's when he's starting to become very strong and does tons of damage. Trinity, like I said, is a hot pick, but I don't think he is S+ here, obviously. The biggest downside, he is very scaling and he gets kited in teamfights. Wukong got buffed, but I don't think he's a champion. I don't think he has quite the 1 vs 9 potential because he has not the damage for the 1 vs 9. He needs decent backup or backline. Rengar, very snowball reliant, he's a hit or miss champion. Either he snowballs, he just one-shots people, or he is useless. Very hit and miss. Shen, I think he's decent, but I don't think he's a good champion on solo queue at least. Better and competitive. Urgot jungle is viable, good jungle clear speed, decent ganks, but he's a tank and he can carry 1 vs 9. Camille is very scaling in my opinion. That's the biggest problem. But obviously our ultimate is excellent for ganks. Nila very scaling. Late game monster though. Jay's jungle clear is shit, but overall good poking damage. Kayle is very scaling, but the late game monster in the jungle. She has better chances to farm herself up. Same for Lilia and Gwen. Those champions are very scaling, need to focus on farming, but in the late game they are monsters. Aurelia is very situational champion and very snowball reliant. Fiora is also snowball reliant and sucks in teamfights. Echo, very scaling champion. His jungle clear is shit. His teamfight potential can be good though once you have 3+ items. Zed also very snowball reliant champion, but can be good. Jax, jungle, 2 scaling, jungle clear speed is not good, but his teamfight potential is actually pretty good. Warwick, snowball reliant champion, but he sucks in teamfights. Sion, very scaling, can be good frontline I guess in teamfights. Honestly, I should not put him in jungle, like, I guess don't play him in jungle. Master, he hit or miss like a Rengar, but he's easier to counter. Pyke jungle, very snowball reliant as well. Kind of hit and miss. Can work out if you guys are getting some kills off or some ganks off. Same for Twitch, also very cheesy jungler that needs to Twitch needs to cheese in the early game, get some kills. Late game, he's a monster though. Let's move on to mid lane. Let me drink really quick. Oops. So, for mid lane, we have Syndra. Syndra got nerfed, but she's still very strong AP poking assassin. I mean, she's a control mage that has damage of an assassin, kinda. Akali, you guys already know, very strong assassin, especially in teamfights. Vladimir is a scaling monster. Lux has very good poking damage. Crowd control thanks to the binding, and utility thanks to the shielding. Kassadin is one of the best late game champions thanks to his poking damage and his mobility. Corki, insane poking damage, and the package is a game changer in teamfights. Diana, high mobility, excellent in teamfights as well. You guys already know Yone and Yasuo are late game monsters. Zed is a split push monster and also very strong in the 1vs1. Talon, in my opinion, also he's kind of snowball reliant, but he can be a fantastic hard counter in the mid lane against majority of mages or squishy champions. And also he can rotate on the wildrift map so fast right now. Zoe is a strong poking mage, and surprisingly she has one of the highest win rates on the Chinese server in Master and Grandmaster Plus, or Grandmaster Plus I think. 58% win rate. I honestly don't know how, because I never face Zoe. I never see Zoe, I never face Zoe. I can't really tell. I feel like her poking damage hasn't been the same since she got nerfed, but maybe I'm wrong, you guys can tell me. Aurelion Sol is very good in teamfights, has good crowd control and good damage, but he's at the same time very scaling. Katarina, I've never seen Katarina right now. I'm gonna put her S tier because she always has that if factor. One reset, boom, pentakill. The amount of times this is happening, when I'm facing Katarina, it's always a Katarina one-trick pony, and she gets one reset and she just winning the game. Jace got buffed, insane poking damage, but I just feel like he's a champion that can carry as well in the late game in comparison to other champions. Ziggs is a strong poking mage, good in teamfights. Zyra also very good in teamfights thanks to her poking and her plants and her ultimate. Timo with the shroom setup, I already explained it. Also he can rotate very good in the mid lane. Same for Kshan, strong in the early game, very good at rotating. Twisted Fate is a very good control champion, and when I say control champion, I'm talking about map control thanks to his ultimate, his rotation power, his catch potential by ambushing and using the gold card. Karma has a lot of utility, good poking damage and excellent team fights. Swain is a monster in the mid and late game, having a lot of crowd control, being tanky. Fizz is a late game one-shot monster. He's weak in the, I would say he's kind of weak in the early game though, not weak, but he is not the strongest and he needs level 5. And then when he has 3 items, you can't face check anything because otherwise you're getting one-shotted. Gregor's very solid mage. Ari explained his kit. Ari, good playmaking potential, has the charm, has a lot of mobility. Orianna, same as Ziggs in my opinion. Veigar, the average Veigar player is a C tier. The average Veigar player is a C tier player, but Veigar is honestly S tier. But most Veigar players make him look like a D tier champion, let's call it that way. Galio, super solid champion, has good poking damage, has good crowd control, has good playmaking potential, has global ultimate. What can I say? Arella in the mid lane, super good in the 1vs1. Very good snowball potential and playmaking potential. Annie, ultimate, what can I say? Vex, reset mechanic, long range poke, fear mechanic, can jump in, fear multiple people, has the reset, very good. Cannon, ultimate, obviously insane in teamfights. He got nerfed though. Lucian, high mobility, strong in the laning phase, skates like a truck. Pike, Very snowball reliant champion. Very good in solo queue though, because one reset, pew 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 pew, having true damage, having good playmaking potential. Yeah, S tier. Gwen, this champion in the mid lane, is pretty scaling and she gets punished obviously because she's a melee champion. Then we have Brand. Brand has a lot of damage. He lacks mobility though. That's a problem about him. Morgana is very scaling. Is decent though in teamfights. Pantheon strong in the early game but falls off. His snowball potential is pretty good though when he gets ahead, because he can use the ultimate to gank left and right from the mid lane to the top lane or to the bot lane. Then Garen, solid tank overall. If you guys need a tank, or if you guys already have too much AP damage, Garen can be a good tool to counter some melee matchups. Like Garen against Yasuo or Garen against Zed can be pretty good in your favor. Echo, 2 scaling. Seraphine, dude, I don't know how. Seraphine has a 58% win rate right now in Master Plus, or like Grandmaster Plus. I don't know how even. In my opinion, I rarely see a good Seraphine. I think Seraphine has the very, very strong ultimate for team fights. A game-changing ultimate if you land a good ultimate. But at the same time, she sucks against a lot of champions in the 1v1 because she's so vulnerable. And she's pretty scaling, so I don't know how. I honestly don't know. She got buffed though. Kayle, 2 scaling, but not as easy to punch in the mid lane as in the Baron lane. Lilia, melee champion and very scaling. It explains it. Now let's move on to ADC. I love ADC tier list because it's so short. I don't know why we don't have that many ADC champions. Like look at jungle, so many champions. Jungle, so many champions, but mid lane, ADC, not that many champions. For S plus tier, Kai'Sa. Why is Kai'Sa so good? She has stealth, she has damage of an assassin, she has repositioning thanks to ultimate. Tristana is one of the best late game scaling champion with high range doing tons of damage. Asriel, late game poking monster with high mobility. High mobility champions are just super strong and hard to kill. Lucian, high mobility, and he's one of the strongest early game champions. Sivir, you press the ultimate, you run everyone down. The ultimate is a game changer in teamfights. Vayne, pretty good in the tank meta, but the problem is she is very scaling. Weak in the early game, but late game she is a monster with high mobility and great counter against tanks. Varus, good poking damage, decent utility thanks to his ultimate in teamfights, and he can counter tanks as well. Nilah and Samira, let's just summarize them. Both are strong, engaging ADCs that, with the right setup, can just, in the late game, nuke the whole team. Jhin strong in the early game, doing good damage, kind of positive in the full late game. Corki, excellent champion with good poking damage in teamfights. Caitlyn and Xayah are just strong, solid ADCs. I mean, Caitlyn has the longest range in the early game, just punishes most noobs in the bot lane, honestly. And then she has high range, very solid kit, and is strong at every stage of the game. Xayah is also very solid, has good turn potential thanks to her feathers and self-peel thanks to her ultimate. Draven is probably the strongest early game champion and very good at snowballing the game, and if he's snowballing the game he's just running everyone down, but at the same time he's vulnerable because he doesn't have that much movement speed or disengage tools or like jumps or escape tools. Also, he's hard to play. Misfortune, strong in the early game and excellent teamfight ultimate. Ashe, great teamfight tools thanks to the great catch tools, I would say. Great catch tools thanks to ultimate. But I feel like her damage output is not as good as some other ADCs, and she's way easier to punish than any other ADC thanks to her having zero mobility. Zero. Jinx, true scaling, is a monster in the late game with an enchanter though. Same applies for Zeri and same applies for Twitch. They are all very weak early game champions and they need to scale and they lack mobility. Senna is too scaling in my opinion, and yeah, she's too scaling and her damage output is lackluster in comparison to other ADCs. They just outshine her. Now for support, Yumi got nerfed big times actually. Her adaptive power that she's giving to her allies is way weaker than before, but she's still very, very good because you just sit on the hyper carry that just runs everyone down. Pyke, excellent playmaking champion, roaming everyone, doing so much work by catching people, and then obviously in team fights with his reset, true damage, ultimate, mechanic, just so good. Lulu is strong enchanter, just buffing someone up. Soraka, too much healing. Lux, great. Lux has way too much damage for support while providing a lot of utility, and her bind being super annoying. Thresh is an excellent. Oh, I forgot to move someone. I need to move someone, and that's Zyra. Zyra is not S+ tier. Zyra is S tier. Thresh, great playmaking champion. Yeah, he has the hook, he has the lantern, he has the fling, he has the ultimate to zone people. Now for the other champions, Alistar. Great tank with great roaming potential, excellent team fights. His ultimate provides him with damage reduction. He can knock multiple people up at the same time. Then we have Rakan. He has one of the best engaging tools because he can his engage combo can cover a lot of distance and it's super quick, and you can knock up multiple people and then taunt them at the same time. Nautilus is super beefy, providing a lot of crowd control and has a lot of playmaking potential. Galio also has a lot of playmaking potential thanks to his AoE taunt, and then he has the global ultimate and good poking damage. Gregor's good engage and disengage tool. Leona's is tanky, has good engage tools with the ultimate or with dashing and then single target stunning someone. Braum, I think Braum got buffed, right? So his early game is better because he does more damage. Yeah, Braum got buffed. Damage reduction got increased. Time of the stun got increased. The base attack damage got increased, so his trading in the early game is better, and then his damage reduction that he's providing, like when he's using the shield to block damage, is also better. So he's very good against poking damage because he can block it or like reduce it. Then we have Karma. I already explained in the mid lane what she can do. Nami, Bubble, and Ultimate are just insane playmaking and disengaging tools. Sona skates like a truck in the late game, doing a lot of damage while providing so much healing and shielding. Zyra providing a lot of poking damage, and her ultimate is excellent in team fights. Morgana is weak in the early game, but she provides a lot of poking damage and utility. Ashe with the ultimate great playmaking tool. Senna is like a second carry. When you have the right team comp, like having good enough frontline, she can be very good, providing a lot of utility and damage. Jenna is a decent peeling champion thanks to shielding, tornado, and her ultimate, but her values that she used to have are not as good in comparison to pre-rework. Zed is honestly a hot pick in China, but I never see this champion in Europe. Zero. I think he is very snowball reliant, and his skill ceiling is high to make him work like you need to be a chat, like for good flash E combo or catching people off guard or using the ultimate correctly. I think you need to be mechanically pretty good to make him work as a support, and he's a very roaming orientated champion, picking people off, and he needs a lot of gold, but as a support you won't get that much gold. That's a problem. So I can see why he's working in China, because in China people are brawling a lot and they're more about mechanical stuff and they will rotate better, and Europe, like, the average support is Ninja. What can I say? The average support in Europe is not good. Blitzcrank, a hit or miss champion, very snowball reliant. Most people that play Blitzcrank, they don't know how to aim the hook. Seraphine is weak in the early game, but her ultimate is a game changer in teamfights. I guess that's it. Well, that's going for the tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed. Tell me guys your opinion about the tier list, and I see you guys next time. Bye bye.